Hi everyone, I'm Sherika Hapuarachchi. I have more than 20 years experience in teaching mathematics for primary and secondary students. This is my YouTube channel, Math Plus. Now today I'm going to teach you a new lesson that is probability. Now, children, we know when we get the lesson probability, it's not a small lesson, it's a lengthy lesson. So therefore, I have divided this probability lesson into 3 sections, and today I'm going to cover the first part of it, right? Okay. Now I will share my screen. You can see the lesson. Yes, right. Now, first of all, you should know what is probability. Now, you can see, now here I have taken 2 definitions for the meaning of probability. 2 definitions, right? The first one, probability means possibility. Probability is the branch of mathematics concerning numerical descriptions of how likely an event is to occur. Now, in simple words, the probability means the chance of happening, right? Now, according to the first definition, probability means the possibility, right? So you should know, normally when we get this word probability, with this probability, the next one comes the probability scale. So the next one we are going to learn what is the probability scale. Now, when you get the probability scale, now in this probability scale, you have the numbers, you have a range of the numbers starting from 0 to 1. So you have all the events in between 0 and 1. Now let me explain what is the probability scale. Now here you can see the probability of something happening is defined. We define on a scale. Now how do we define it? Like this way. Now, impossible events we indicate from this 0. Let me show it. Now, this is how we show it. The impossible events, we can show it from 0. And all the certain events, the surely happening events, we can show it from the 1. So, all the other events, we can show in between 0 and 1, right? So that is how we indicate in the probability scale. So what is the probability scale means? The probability of something happening is defined on a scale. That is what we do in a probability scale. So to show impossible events, we can take the number 0, and to show certain events, we can take the number 1. Right? Okay, let's move to the next part. Right. Now in the second probability scale, it's very clear. You can understand how the way the chances are happening. Now, according to this, I will annotate it and show. Now here you can see, now as I mentioned you earlier, this is my impossible event place, and this is my certain event place. This is the even chance, right? Now if I toss a coin, so when I toss a coin, what are my 2 outcomes? I have only 2 outcomes. Those 2 are either head or the tail. So if I say when I toss a coin, the 2 events means it can be, if I get a head, it can be 1 out of 2, or the tail, it can be 1 out of 2. So that kind of event can be seen here, even chance, right? So for that, we can use the even chance. So this is for the impossible events, and this is for the certain events, and this is for the even chance. So even chance we indicate from half or 0.5. And all the other things, now here you have very unlikely, unlikely. So those things are happening in between 0 to 0.5 or 0 to half, and likely and very likely events are happening in between half to 1 or 0.5 to 1, right? Let's move to the next part. Now, up to now, what we have learned, what is probability? Probability means chance of happening, and how do we indicate the probability in a probability scale. Now there we have showed to indicate impossible events, we use the number 0, and to indicate certain events, we use the number 1, and even chance, we use 0.5 or half. All the other events can be seen in between 0 to 1, right? Let's start with some of the examples. Now, the next thing is we should know now how do we calculate the probability. Now, as I mentioned you earlier, probability, we always write it as a fraction, right? We always write the probability as a fraction. That's the way we do. Now, like this way, we write the probability. Okay, just imagine this is how we write the probability. Now, this is how we find the probability. Number of ways an outcome can happen. We have to divide that number by the total number of possible outcomes. That means from all the outcomes, we have to get the event which we want, right? So that is how we find the probability. Always remember, we write the probability as a fraction, right? We'll go to our first example. This is my first example, right? Okay. Here are 5 cards. So what are my cards? Number 2, number 3, number 5, number 8, and number 10. So this is the question. What is the probability of getting a or an? My A part, an odd number. Now, what you have to do out of these 5 numbers, you have to identify the odd numbers. We know what are odd numbers. The odd numbers are the numbers ending with 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So according to these 5 numbers, 3 is an odd number, 5 is an odd number. That means I have 2 outcomes, right? So these are my 2 answers, and all together I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outcomes. So when I want to write this, I have to write the probability as a fraction. There are 2 events, so I can write it as 2 out of 5, right? So this is how we show our probability of getting an odd number. Now, if you want, you can write it as a decimal number as well, right? So 0.4, you will get it as the decimal number. So 2 divided by 5, you're getting 0.4. Now, I think you all know how do we convert a fraction to a decimal. What you should do, you divide the numerator by the denominator. So that is what we do, right? So when you want to write it as a decimal, so you divide this numerator by the denominator. So according to this example, so you divide number 2 by 5, right? So that is what we do. Now we know inside 2, we don't have any 5s. So you have to put the decimal point, and then you take 1, 0. Inside 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, there are 4 5s. So therefore, my answer is 0.4. So that is how we find 2 out of 5 fraction. This is how we convert 2 out of 5 to the decimal form. Right. Let's move to the second one. Now the same 5 numbers I have to use. Now in the B part, what should I do? I have to find the probability of getting an even number. So first of all, we should know what are even numbers. Even numbers are the multiples of 2 or ending with 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So according to this, I will use another color, right? So even numbers, this is the first even number, and this is the second even number, and this is the third even number. So according to these 5 numbers, I have 3 even numbers. What are my even numbers? 2, 8, and 10. We have 5 numbers. Out of 5, 3 are even. So therefore, I can show my probability like this, 3 out of 5. So that also you can write it as a decimal. So 3, when you divide by 5, you are getting 0.6, right? The next one, the C part. Now the question is, what is the probability of getting a multiple of 4. So what's the meaning of multiple of 4? The table of 4. So when you get this, you can see 2 is not a multiple of 4, and 3 also not a multiple of 4, 5 also not a multiple of 4, only 8, yes, it's a multiple of 4, and 10 is not a multiple of 4. So we have only one event, that is only 8, and we have 5 outcomes. So out of those 5 outcomes, we have only one outcome. So how do we write the probability of getting a multiple of 4? It should be 1 out of 5, right? So you can show it as 1 over 5. That is how we find. The next one, the prime numbers. We know what are prime numbers. If it is a prime number, it can divide by number itself, and it can divide by 1. So according to this, yes, 2 is a prime number. We'll just see whether 2 is a prime number. Yes, we can divide 2 by 1 exactly, and we can divide 2 by 2 exactly. Therefore, 2 is a prime number. We'll see whether 3 is a prime number. 3 we can divide by 1 exactly, and 3 we can divide by 2 exactly. Yes, 3 also a prime number. Then we'll move to 5. Yes, 5 we can divide by 1 exactly, and we can divide 5 by 5. Other two numbers, just we'll try 8. What are the factors of 8? Yes, we have 1, 2. Yes, we can divide 8 by 2 exactly, by 4, and by 8. So according to this number 8, I have 4 factors. So therefore 8 is not a prime number. Similarly, 10 also not a prime number, because when you get number 10, it can be divided by 1 exactly, 2, 5, and 10. So therefore, according to the numbers what I have given, 2 is a prime number, 3 is a prime number, and 5 is a prime number. We have 5 numbers out of 5. 3 are prime numbers. So how do we write the probability? We have to write it as 3 out of 5, right? So that is how we do it. Now let's move to our last part, factors of 14. Now let me do it here, right? When you are going to find the factors of 14, 1 is a factor of 14. Years, you can divide 14 by 1 exactly without remaining anything. 2 is a factor of 14. After that, you have 7. Years, it's a factor of 14 and 14. So when you get number 14, 1, 2, 7, and 14 are the factors of 14. Now let me see whether number 1 is here. No, we don't have. Number 2, yes, I have number 2, right? Then we'll see whether we have number 7. No, number 14, we have only number 2. So we have only one event, and there are 5 outcomes. So how do we indicate the probability of getting a factor of 14? It should be 1 out of 5, right? So this is our first example. Now what we have done here, I have given 5 numbers. Out of those 5 numbers, we have taken according to our question. The first part, we have identified the odd numbers, then the even numbers, then the multiples of 4, then the prime number, and then a factor of 14, right? I think the first question is very clear. Now let's move to the second question. Right, let's move to the second question. Right. Now for the second question, I have taken a spinner. Let me make it a little bit bigger, then you all can see it very clearly. Right, see my second question. Okay. This is my second question. It's a spinner. The question is, what is the probability of the spinner landing on red? That's the first part. And the second part, what is the probability of the spinner landing on orange? Now, before you're going to answer this question, you have to study your spinner. So you have to get the correct information from the spinner. Now, when I look at this spinner, it's a circular spinner, and I have divided this circular spinner into 4 equal parts. So if I take one part, I can see very well there are 4 parts. Out of 4, I have only one part for blue. So I can write the fraction as 1 out of 4, right? So there are 4 parts. So one part for blue, so I can indicate it as 1 out of 4. So when I check the orange color, they are even the similar way. I have only one part, so I can show it as 1 over 4. But when I'm going to take the red color, I can see there are 2 parts. So I can see it very well. That means if I take this is 1 out of 4, and I have another red part. So if I want to take that, that also will be again another 1 out of 4. So when I simplify 1 out of 4 plus 1 out of 4, now we know when the denominator is same, we can just add the numerator. So then 1 plus 1, it's 2, and we keep the same denominator. I'll get 2 out of 4. So I can simplify this as 1 over 2 or half, right? So now we have identified. Now the blue color, I have 1 over 4. Red color, I have 1 over 4. And the blue color, I have 1 over 4. Orange color, I have 1 over 4. And the red color, I have 2 over 4 or 2 out of 4, right? Now let's move to the question. So the first thing is, children, remember when you get a question, before you answer the question, you study the diagram. If you have a diagram, or if you have a table, or if you have a chart, first you study the chart, you get the correct meaning. After that, you go to the questions, right? So that is what we have done here, right? My first part, what is the probability of the spinner landing on red? Now, according to this, now we identified there are 2 parts out of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 parts. We have 2 parts out of 4. So therefore, I can write my probability as 2 out of 4, right? So that this is the answer for the first part, right? The second part, what is the probability of the spinner landing on orange? Now this orange color, we have only one part out of 4. So therefore, I can write the probability as 1 out of 4, right? So this is what we have done. We got a spinner. First, we have identified the correct parts, right? So like that way you can do. Okay, let's move to the third question. Now in the first part, we have taken some of the numbers. From the numbers, we have identified the probability. Let me show it. So what we have done in the first part, we have taken some numbers. From those numbers, we have identified the odd numbers, even numbers, multiples of 4, prime numbers, and the factors of 14. Then from the second question, we have done 2 probability questions which related to the spinner, right? Now let's move to our last question, or to the third question, right? Now in the third question, now what I have given, bag A contains 10 blue balls and 20 red balls. Bag B contains 8 blue balls and 12 red balls. Now, the first thing is, when you get a question like that, the necessary steps, you better write it down. Now, we have bag A and bag B. We know in bag A, I have 10 blue. So, better you write it. Then it's much more clear. Then you know what you have to do, right? Okay, I have 10 blue and 20 red. So I have 20 red balls, right? Okay, 20 red. Now, when I take my second bag, there I have 8 blue, right? And I have 12 red. 12 red. Okay, right. Now let's move to the questions. A ball is chosen at random from each bag. The random means without looking, right? Now, my first part, what is the probability of taking a blue ball from bag A? Now, they are asking from bag A. Now, when I consider bag A, in bag A, I have 10 blue balls and 20 red balls. Now, I have mentioned, now, first of all, we have to find how to get the probability. When we write the probability, the total parts we write as the denominator, and the parts which we really want to know, we write it as the numerator. So according to this question, I want to get the blue part. So blue, I have 10, and altogether I have 10 plus 20, 30. So then the answer should be 10 out of 30. I think it's clear because we have our total parts 20 plus 10, which is 30. And we are considering the blue. So blue, we have 10. So the probability should be 10 out of 30, right? So if you want, you can simplify it, or else you can keep as it is. So if you are going to simplify, you can divide by 10, then you will get 1 over 3. But if you want, you can write 10 over 30 as well. Right, let's move to the next part, right? What is the probability of taking a red ball from the bag B? Now, this time from bag B, you're going to get from bag B, and it is not blue color, it's red color. Now here, 8 plus 12, we have 20. Altogether, there are 20 balls. Out of 20, 12 are red, right? So that is how we show the probability. I think this is the first part. From this first part, you have learned what is. Now I will show it from the beginning, what we have done today. Okay, let me show it. Now from this probability part 1, what we have learned, what is probability, what is the definition for probability? The simple meaning means the chance of happening, or the probability means the possibility. Then we have identified what is the probability scale. In a probability scale, we show the numbers from 0 to 1. 0 indicates the impossible events, and 1 indicates the certain events, and all the other events are in between 0 and 1, right? So that was the probability scale. And then we have identified how to identify or how to calculate the probability. Now, how do we find the probability? We write the total number of possible outcomes as the denominator, and number of ways an outcome can happen as the numerator. And I mentioned you all earlier, how do we write the probability? Always we write the probability as a fraction. Then we checked 3 questions. The first question, I have given some numbers. From those numbers, we have identified the probability of getting an odd number, an even number, a multiple of 4, a prime number, and the factors of 14. Then we move to the second question that related to the spinner. So from there, we have done 2 parts. And the third example, we have used 2 different bags, right? So that is what we have done in the probability part 1. Okay, right. Now from this lesson, if you have gained anything, you do subscribe this and share with your friends. And if you really want to get any other thing, please comment me, right? We'll meet with another video. Thank you very much.